Hello, YouTubers out there. This is the Boob Wasteland Show with your host, Jerry Saravia. And on this show, as many of you know, I like to talk about television programs, anything related to television, sitcoms, sometimes TV movies, but for the most part, news shows, current trends in television, uh, really anything related to television. In fact, in sometime in the future, I'm going to discuss more in-depth ratings, which is the benchmark by which you measure any show's success, and how perhaps it's not being measured the right way, but that's a future topic for the show. But in this show today, since I've talked about all things related to television, I've never really discussed commercials. So we're going to talk about one. And of course, the commercial that's been talked about, and which, now granted, I do not watch a lot of commercials on television, to be honest with you, but I do catch some, and I do surveys on the side in addition to my regular job. So I usually get to see some commercials in advance. This one I did not see in advance, but then again, who knows? It might have been circulating somewhere. I didn't get a chance to see this. But the commercial in question, probably some of you already saying it before I will, is the Cheerios commercial. There's a new Cheerios commercial. It features a black dad, a white mom, and a biracial kid. And it's gained a lot of negative attention earlier this month, really about a week ago. So much so that on YouTube, which showed the commercial, the comments had been disabled because they were very, very racist. Now, before some of you say in 2013, yes, in 2013. Um, this is really, to me, nothing new because racism doesn't exactly go away. It should, it does not. And when it comes to black people, it seems like it's more prevalent than it should be. And when it comes to an interracial couple, I wouldn't think as much uh, because the focus lately has been on same-sex marriage in reference to gays, should gays marry, and all this and that. Nobody really talks about interracial couples and whether or not they should marry. In fact, for those of you who do keep tabs with what it is that I upload on this channel, you'll know that about a month ago I uploaded a video which was a tribute to the Lovings, and they were a couple, interracial couple that were married back in the 50s in Washington, D.C., which allowed interracial marriage, but not in their home state, which was Virginia. And that caused, basically, there was a landmark Supreme Court case, and naturally their marriage was allowed eventually. So now that's back in the 50s. So now 60 years later, amazingly enough, we still have some sort of an issue, but not with them getting married. Now, I don't know if every single state in this country allows for interracial marriage, believe it or not. In fact, I mean now only in Mississippi recently, for example, they got rid of some of the old slavery laws. You wonder what took so long. Seems this country is slow to really be progressive. We progress in certain things, not so much in others. But an interracial couple on television, to be honest with you, I guess we don't see much of that at all. Not even in TV shows. I mean, very rarely. I mean, I can't really, off the top of my head, think of any that came out recently in a sitcom or a TV show. I mean, I don't watch everything. I certainly don't have the time. But this was interesting. Again, this is a Cheerios commercial. And in fact, it was brought up on The View, and that's when they show the full commercial. And after it was shown, I said, what the heck is the problem here? But then that's just me. Well, the problem was that it depicted an interracial couple. Now, according to an article I've read here, they say that in 2010 the census showed that there's a significant increase in the population that identifies as mixed race or multiracial. The number of American young people who identify as more than one race has increased almost 50% since 2000. Well, yes, absolutely. In fact, I think interracial couples clearly have been around for a long time. The Lovings in the 1950s were not an isolated case. I mean, there were a lot of interracial couples. We might not have heard of much of them then, didn't mean they didn't exist. Now, as they say in some states, nobody cares about this sort of thing. For example, in Hawaii, which is an immigrant state, um, there's, for example, one woman said that she knows someone who's German, and I'm sorry, is a man who says that he's black, and the wife is German, white, and their parents didn't have a problem until they were going to get married, and they said, what are the kids going to look like? But other than that, in Hawaii, interracial marriage is not necessarily an issue. Now, I live in Maryland, and I got to tell you, I see more interracial couples here than I have when I used to live in New York and New Jersey, even New Mexico for that matter. I used to live there too. So that's interesting, and yet in this state, I see a lot more Confederate flags than I saw in either New Jersey, New York, or New Mexico. I also used to live in Canada, but of course, you're not going to see a Confederate flag there. I guarantee you that much. But an interracial couple, interestingly enough, perhaps not that often, but I saw a lot more here. I've seen other interracial couples. I don't want to say I never did, but I've seen a lot more here. But getting back to the commercial, what is really the problem? Well, if somebody pointed out, if this couple was white and they had a white child, it would be no issue. If this was a black couple with a black child, now that you see quite often in a lot of commercials. Sitcoms, maybe more so in TBS, in the world of Tyler Perry, not so much in network TV. But, so that is fine. But if this was, let's say, a black couple, let's say if this was a white couple with a black child, I wonder what would happen then. Would there be an issue? Where's all this racism come from? Who is projecting all this racism out there? Who is projecting a racist attitude towards this? Racism always interests me. But again, this is not a political channel, but it does interest me. And in particular, you have to discuss it in terms of television. Why is this happening? I had heard that in the Twitter universe, which I don't visit very often, when the Hunger Games came out, on Twitter, a lot of young people were on Twitter, and they were saying how disgusting that there were black people in the Hunger Games movie. I guess they forgot the same characters also existed in the book, but hey. So the racism is cyclical, right? And it's passed down from one generation to another. So if you have parents who are racist and they impose their values and ideology and hatred, whatever you want to call it, onto their children, this just keeps going on and on and on. But again, I ask, why is this not more common? Why don't we see more commercials like this? I always feel that commercials lack culture. They don't reflect the culture that we really live in. I mean, some do. But again, I can't point too many off the top of my head. Generally speaking, we see a lot of white couples in commercials. Again, we're going to stick to the commercials for the time being. That's what you see. You don't see gay couples in commercials. I mean, you just don't. God forbid you see a black gay couple with a white child, or a white gay couple with a black child, or vice versa. You just don't see this, and yet that is the reality, isn't it? I mean, I know when I see gay couples, I see them. So how come television can't reflect that? And I don't know what it is. I just do not understand this. I mean, we don't see too many Asians either. Is it possible to see more Asian couples, Hispanic couples, everything? The fear may be, as this article pointed out, that the fear is that the white people, from their perspective, their point of view, they are going to become the minority in the United States. But on the other hand, why don't we think back, shall we, to the beginning of the 1900s? Even before that, there were immigrants coming into this country. Who were these immigrants? They were Polish, German, black, Asian, multicultural. In the state of New York, that's a multicultural. A it's a multicultural state. It's a blending of all cultures are represented. Muslim, Buddhist, etc. But then when I live in New Mexico, it's the same thing. New Mexico is a very Christian state, but they have a Buddhist monastery there. Not the entire. I mean, it's just silly to me, um, and I don't understand this. Why is this an issue, and why so much racism towards this? I don't understand it. But I guess the fear, implicit, explicit, is that the white man, is going to be the minority. But then again, nobody is 100% purely white, are they? I mean, who is? We all come from somewhere else. And until we realize that day, nothing's ever going to be solved. So in terms of this commercial, this shouldn't be a hot button issue. It's an interracial couple, for God's sakes. That's all it is. Um, and in the commercial, again, it's a Cheerios, for goodness sakes. And it's the mother's white. She's sitting at the table. She tells her daughter, who is half black, half white, uh, eat your Cheerios, it's good for your heart, da da da. And then we cut to a shot of a black man laying on a sofa or couch, and he has all these Cheerios on him. And it's funny. I don't understand. I mean, but I guess again, when it comes to a mixed race couple, it somehow is unacceptable in television. Um, now, part of it may also be the fact of who our leader of the free world is. It's President Barack Hussein Obama, and I guess that's part of it too, because I don't remember hearing so many different racist attitudes since he came into office prior to him being in office. I mean, there's always been racism in this country, but not to the degree. It's almost like the kooks are coming out of the closet, so to speak. Um, and I don't know if this is even a reflection of that too, you know, because after all, he is half black, half white. We got to get past this someday. Someday we have to get past all this nonsense. I don't know when that day will come or if it will come ever. But a commercial is really just a commercial. And we need to be able to understand that television in general, sitcoms and shows and movies, should reflect the culture that we live in. And yes, let's just say it's a mixed culture. I mean, like saying mixed race. We only have one race, it's the human race. But let's stop being too political and just understand that we have a different representation of all cultures in this country. That's what this country is all about. We got to get past this someday, so let's hope so. So check out the Cheerios commercial. If you ever run into it on television, understand that if you have no problem with it, then why should anyone else? That's the way I see it. This is Jerry at the Movies. Well, actually, the Boob Wasteland Show. Whoops. But with Jerry at the Movies, your host Jerry Saravia, signing off.